Apostle.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm so excited and honored to be with you as well. So thank you so much for inviting me on. Let me share a little bit about what I do. But I tell people I'm all things media, ministry, mentorship, and marketing. I love media. My background is TV news, and I also had an ad agency back in the day. And so it's all things media and ministry. In the midst of doing media, God had people telling me, I perceive you to be a prophet and all kinds of stuff. And next thing you know, I have a Prophetic Institute where we train prophets from all over the globe, not just for church, but for in the marketplace as well. And then I'm the founder of Global Prophetic Life Training and Worship Embassy here in Jacksonville, where I'm the lead pastor. I don't know how that happened either. I just don't know. God graces you to do things sometimes. But anyway, I'm excited about, getting ready, talking to you about this last book, and we have some new ones on the way as well. So thank you so much for allowing me to come on and to share.
Well, thank you so much, Apostle. As I stated to you guys, I'm just excited. Like I said, she's been a mentor in my head for years, to the point where I go to my own apostle and say, oh my God, I saw this, Apostle Dwann did this, or I read this. And he's like, oh my God, okay. Because at the end of the day, I'm just a student at heart. So anyone who wants to empower and educate, I am all for it. So let's jump in, guys. I'm hoping that my internet is not acting crazy, but I want to show you the cover of the book, because there are so many Permission to Grieve books out there, and I want to make sure you have the right one. So this is Permission to Grieve: How to Cope Through Public Loss in the Midst of Private Pain. So, Apostle, if you kind of tell us, where exactly did this come from?
Oh my goodness. My grandmother, Eleanor Nash Holmes, died back in 2015 in March. And it was, oh my goodness, it was, although she had been, ill, and it was still kind of, how grief is, or when death takes place, it's kind of like shakes you a little. My dad asked me to do her eulogy. I did that. And then within a year, my dad died. And it was devastating. And then I was also, the pastor, or the executive pastor, and, leading another church at the time. And I had just started chaplaincy as well, where they really want you to get a hold of your feelings and work yourself through helping others grieve, in the midst of crisis. And I just remember walking through that and recognizing all the different things that were coming at me, and also recognizing that there were some people who were trying to direct my grief.
Wow.
And there were some people who were saying, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, and maybe things should go this way. And then I found out later on that there were some people trying to direct my grief behind my back. And wow. I just said, oh, yeah, exactly. And God just said, document everything. So I began to document everything, and then really recognize that you have to give people permission to grieve. And many times you have to be willing to tell people that it's okay to grieve. And also, when you're a leader, what happened is one of my mentees and somebody I cover said, oh my goodness, leaders can never grieve in privacy. And I said, wow, you know what? You're right. And so I just began to document that. But it was interesting to me that she saw that. And then next thing you know, COVID hits, but I'd kind of been holding it for a little while. And then God said, no, put it out now. And so I was able to weave in some tips on just crisis, grief management, and, what to do when your leader, the leader of a church, is in the midst of grieving. How do you lead and grieve at the same time? And what I found is it's so important that those you lead give you permission to grieve, but recognize that you need just as much grace in grieving as you've given them in leading.
Oh, that's good.
Because what I found is in the midst of leading while you're grieving, those you lead forget how much grace you've given them.
Wow.
And then in the midst of that, I began to see my relationships started breaking. There were some people who wanted me to stick by them in the midst of leading them. But then when I needed some people to stick by me in the midst of my grief, it was like they could not see that in 2 consecutive years, I lost my grandmother, my father. I was the eulogist for both. And in the midst of that, you still wanted me to be that superwoman. And so because I am again, media for me is therapeutic at times, so I made sure that everything was documented. I mean, I had photographers, videographers. And so I would be able to look and grieve that way, but I still also am a person who works through grief. I was still going through chaplaincy. I was still helping people in the hospital grieve as I was grieving, but it was helping me through it. Yeah, it was helping me through, but I knew that's what I had to do because the other thing, when I took it to God, you know what? Because I think I remember somebody said, "Oh my goodness, your dad just died and you're still going through this 21 days of whatever." And I said, "Well, yeah, I think it was 28 days." I said, "Yeah, but I'm on the 21st day, so I need you to just follow it through." You know what I mean? I'm going, wow. and people can understand that, but that's just me, my personality. And then that's me, staying focused. But here's what I remembered. I remember when David's son died. After he died, he said, it's done. He said, you know what? I'm going to take, I got 30 days. What more is there for me to do? And so that's kind of how I grew. I was like, you know what? Let me strategically grieve for a certain amount of time. Let me get through eulogizing my father. Once I'm through with that, then I'll take some downtime and grieve. And once I'm done there, I'll let God be God. I'll keep pushing through what I need to push through, and I'll let God direct me. And I ask that everyone give me grace.
Wow. Apostle, first of all, you said a whole lot. But what I love that you talked about is ensuring that the flock, the ones that you're leading, give the same grace. And it's because I know, especially for my apostle, he's my mentor, he's my father, and all of these things. But I realize at the end of the day, he's just a person. Mm-hmm. And although he's my representation of God here on earth. He's my God, my spiritual father and things of that nature. He deals with, just like you deal with, grief and death and things of that nature as any other human being. And what's so unfortunate is yours happened in 2015. And I know that the Lord told you to release this book, of course, during the pandemic. Is there are some leaders, like you dealt with 2 deaths in a matter of months, 2 years, basically. There's some leaders who lost 10 members and friends and, all of these things. And what do you say as an apostle, as a leader, as you were writing this book and as you were thinking of adding some excerpts from what you saw and what God was telling you as people were dealing with COVID, like because again, I can't even imagine the pressure of being a senior leader and still having to show up.
Right. Exactly. You show up regardless. And I think that's what people don't seem to appreciate and to recognize until it's their turn not to show up. And then when it's their turn not to show up, they just don't show up and things still go on. But if I take the time to not show up, there's something going to happen unless I have everything together. So what I'm encouraging all leaders and churches to do right now is to have a grief contingency plan. And I know people are like, what? No, you need a grief contingency plan for leadership, because what happens when they grieve and they need to take a step back from leading? So there should be a plan in place to say, this is what's going to happen, or someone up top, on top and bottom, should know what's going to happen. Because the other thing that I've seen, I've been pulled into churches where they have lost, maybe the first lady, or they've lost, a senior leader. And what I've found as well is many times in those situations, there's no grief counseling or grief therapy offered to the group. And because it's not offered to the group, it literally puts the church and the organization in a state of grief that I don't think God intended to take place as long as it has and had. And so right now, what we are dealing with is a state of global grief over the world. And so now we have global grief hovering over the world. We have some people who refuse to do grief counseling, some folks who have never been given permission to grieve. And now we want everybody to still produce and to be normal when it's impossible, because grief is a process. And the other thing that God really told me, what he said, you have to commit to cope, and you got to teach people how to commit to cope.
Wow. And it's so unfortunate because and this is my opinion, you guys, it's my opinion, but it's like we're told it's fake it to make it. So if I'm grieving, I have to push and show people that I'm okay and not cope. Or I'm out in public, I have to be one way, but then when I'm behind closed doors, I'm dying. Like literally feel like I'm dying, because as you stated, there are a lot of people who, unfortunately, I know during the beginning of the pandemic, where there were so many lives, like I literally came off of social media for a while because the rest in peace flyers that kept coming up, even though I didn't know the people personally, it was shifting my mindset. I started grieving for people I didn't even know, because I saw how was it affecting. So there are churches that lost their leaders, that lost 2 and 3 leaders, and as you stated, most of them, I'm sure, didn't have a grief contingency plan. So now you go from having a senior pastor, a pastor, an assistant pastor, or whatever the structure is, to now your whole board is gone.
Exactly.
And your members are left there like, oh my God, what do we do? And because, and again, guys, I'm for myself, I know I've been in the Black church for a very long time. It's kind of like, it is well with my soul. And then we have to act like that everything is okay and keep moving forward for the sake of the ministry, instead of getting tools to cope. And so I'm just so glad that the Lord, especially as you being an apostle, for you having your own experience, to having the strength and the courage to write a piece of literature that will not only help just people in general grieve, but leaders, teach them how, and teach us as the people who sit and support and follow our leaders, how to truly care for a leader in a way where we give them that grace that's needed. And so I'm just, and I haven't had an opportunity to read the book yet. I'm an audio person, and I'm an audio person because, of course,
coming out.
Yes. Well, because the last book, first of all, you guys, I love Apostle Dwann's voice is so distinctive. And so her last book, the market, about the marketplace, I bought the book, but I also got the Audible because her voice is so distinctive and it has such power and authority that I wanted to hear her read the book because it would emphasize the places that I needed to pay more attention to. And so I am excited about this audio book coming up because I know that's gonna be my thing because I'm sure you're gonna read it yourself, right?
Oh yeah, I am. Yeah, I just got a little bit delayed, and then I said, okay, wait a second. So, it should be back. Are we in May yet? No, we're not. So it should be out by the end of May. So we're good. We're good. We're good. But I do want to share a portion of it with you today because you asked me what the other portion that really made me see that I needed to think about putting it all together in a book was I wrote kind of, a little kind of poem expressing my feelings about, what happens when grief hits your pulpit. And then it went viral. And I was like, what in the world? And then I had several people, more than several, hundreds, inbox me, but particularly leaders who were like, you know what, I need to forward this to so-and-so because they're in the middle of grieving. And so I want to share just a little portion of that with you, if you'll allow me to read a portion of it. And it says, when grief hits your pulpit, and this is the introduction. I use a portion of this as the introduction. It says, give them time to breathe, give them time to cleave, give them permission to cry, to talk, to be silent, to ponder, to slow down, to speed up, to be themselves without questioning why. Give them time to lead with you reflecting on their actions and results from the past that can help your future. Give them your loyalty, your love, and your leadership in doing so while not allowing the balls they normally carry to be dropped. Give them your commitment to guard them even in their humanity without judging their words and lack thereof. Give them time to hurt. Give them time to heal. Give them time to hope. Give them the courtesy to be honest and the kindness to help. Give them time to reflect on their loss without losing you and your attention simply because offense has outweighed your discernment to see what is not being said. Give them the same grace you want extended to you when crisis hits your home. That's essentially what I want to attempt to share, namely how to handle personal pain in the midst of your public crisis and how to help others get through grief when it feels like you don't know what to do.
Wow, that's Apostle.
Yeah. So it was that. And that, like I said, that went viral. And I was like, I didn't really understand until later.
Because isn't this times, Pastor Henry? I think that's Pastor. Yeah. Hi, Pastor.
Maybe Henry. Yep, that's her. Yes, that's her. I appreciate her so much. Because again, you got to be able to discern what your leader is going through. You got to be able to hear and see even when they don't speak. And that's where we kind of get off.
Oh, yes, that's where we could get off because I work very closely with my leader. And there was a time in a season where I said, why am I not picking up my leader in the spirit? Like, why am I not kind of feeling this out, like knowing when to move and when not to move? And the Lord basically told me I wasn't in prayer enough. I said, what? I prayed. And it was no, because if you're in prayer enough and if you watch, instead of moving so quickly, I can show you how to move and to operate. And that really was my prayer for a season, to help me see what I don't hear. Because a lot of times, we expect people to tell us what's wrong. And a lot of times, I know for me, I can't even articulate the words sometimes.
Right.
I can't articulate the words. And so, and as leaders, I mean, you don't want to appear weak. You don't want to appear like you don't, know what you're doing, or you don't have it together. You're responsible for so many people, and especially, and I'm going to tell you guys, because I've sat under apostle now for 11 years. It is totally different too. When you have a prophetic mantle and an apostolic mandate, it's totally different to sit under a leader who has that, because at the end of the day, the vision that apostles have is vast. And then on top of that, between the warfare and all these other things, and then to deal with grief and with loss. And I wanted to talk about too, because there were a lot of leaders who experienced loss when it came to not to be in the pulpit. Like not being able to walk into their ministries for a season. Right. Not being able to connect physically with their members, on top of losing people. But how, does the book talk about any of that? Because I know there's still some leaders who still, unfortunately, haven't been able to go back into their buildings. So how do we, as their people or their support, try to encourage or support, or what does that look like?
Well, again, this is that same thing, because we have to recognize that grief doesn't only happen in and through death. Grief happens through loss. And so it's it could be a loss of job, like we're seeing here, a loss of coming together, even divorce. That's a form. People will grieve through divorce as well. And what we've seen here is in the midst of this pandemic, we've seen a forced loss, where you've literally been forced to not come together. And what I have seen is, I believe this is why we are having so many bouts and issues with mental health, because there's something about being in an environment that ushers in the Holy Spirit, and that also ushers in a covering over you that causes your being not to be disturbed and not to be depressed. But when we are not coming together, when we're not coming together, we are dealing with so much more than the loss of not being in the pulpit. We're dealing with the loss of physical touch, physical contact, the loss of the word being prophesied into our spirit man, and causing our spirit man to remain awake and to remain at the level that we need it to be at. And so in times like this, that's what I'm saying, we've got to really understand what we need to do for our leaders, which is we have to recognize that our leaders are hurting too. And that's unfortunately, it's like that's such a horrible result of, I think, us having to shepherd so many sheep at low levels. All right. Wow. So what begins to happen is we want so much concern about ourselves that we can't even see that our brother, our sister, and that even our leader is in the same boat. So I'm having to deal with you. Tell me how bad it is for you, and you can't even recognize that I'm in a similar situation, because I'm preaching to chairs. I'm preaching to empty chairs, and you still want me to release revelation. I'm looking into the screen, and you still want me to prophesy you under a bench, while there's no grace. And so the number one thing that I want this book to be able to do is really to shift our insight on what it really takes to lead, but also to lead in loss and to lead in grief. And then what are our responsibilities as lay people? What are our responsibilities as leaders who are called to guard the vision? Do I stop guarding in the midst of grief? Do I stop guarding in the midst of a pandemic? You know, and so it's all of those type of things that where it's really causing us also to see where those we lead with are. Know those who you labor among is the truth, and you are seeing it at a whole other level right now.
Ooh, yes, yes. Oh my God, you said so much. You said so much because honestly, during this pandemic, and you guys know, I talk about my boss all the time, but I have really, truly during this time, and we just celebrated his birthday this weekend or whatever. But I say to him all the time, especially during this pandemic, so many people from the ministry literally took a step up. And it was kind of like, oh my God, we got work to do. Like, and literally, people just started picking up and doing the work of the ministry. And not necessarily within the four walls, because a lot of people are hurting who will never get to a church, who will never get to a ministry, especially now, whether it's I want to go, no one is open, or I want to go, but I don't know where to go. Are they going to receive me? All of these different things or whatever. And during this time, I know for myself, it's like I said, oh my God, what can I do to take the load off? Because this is too much. Like that's literally, I know myself how I felt like this is too much for anybody. And literally, I know my leader was calling me like every other day, like, did you hear about this one? Did you hear about this one? And these are people he co-labored with and then losing family members and things of that nature, and still pushing and still praying and still doing all these things on top of the fact of surviving COVID himself.
Oh, wow.
And still doing. And so my concern is, and I have a heart for leadership because I see how much people, and I hate to say this, people, it's so unfortunate how we can take our leaders for granted. How we figure they are Superman or Superwoman with these capes on, and they can touch you and hit, and and the power of God can come through, and you're healed and you're set free and you're delivered. However, who is doing that for them? And so my assignment, even throughout this pandemic, was to really truly increase my prayer life, to pray for leaders, because I realized during this time that I don't know how guys do it. Like I just don't know how. And I say to my leader all the time, the grace that the Lord has given you, I just don't know how you do it. And so I first of all, I need all of you guys to get this book. Not just somebody, everybody get the book. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it is free right now on Kindle Unlimited. You permission to grieve, you can go to prophetdwann.com. You can click it and order the book from her. She'll even send it for you guys, because I have a signed copy of one of my books from her. She will sign it for you. You can also find it on Amazon, but I am telling you, you need to get this book. And honestly, I really want to read about the contingency plan, the grief contingency plan, because you're so right. Even when it came to in the marketplace in my job, we lost, an actual employee who worked with everyone. We had resources already in place, whether it be an employee assistance program, counseling, whatever. All of these things we already had in place. However, when it comes to the ministry, when it comes to the church or whatever, we're lacking in some of these areas because unfortunately there's some Messiah is to go away and then you're going to be fine and shout it out on a Sunday, but not really truly understanding the need to provide that continuous support. And
Right.
that continue, especially if you're losing a bunch of leaders.
Right. And I think when this is taking place, as far as that contingency plan is, it's so important. What I really say is, you've got to provide clarity. And then as support leaders, you've got to ask for clarity, because it's when things aren't clear that things begin to get confused. And so part of that is just, I walk them through the questions that they need to ask, the one in grief prior to it. And then also, as leaders, we just need to have a contingency plan off to the side of what we want to happen. But also, as you know, in the midst of grief and in the midst of just crisis, it's difficult to have difficult conversations. People just do not want to have difficult conversations. And so what I say is always lead with honor, but be honorable yet direct. When someone's in the midst of grief and you don't have that contingency plan, then as a leader, you would know this, as a leader, then somebody's got to step up to the plate and do something. And so as you step up to the plate and do something, you have to recognize in the midst of grief, there's all kinds of clouds all over the place. So we have to be honorable yet direct. We have to ask direct questions. Who do you want to preach the next 4 Sundays? How long do you want to be off? Is there someone, do you have a friend who you've already agreed to who will come in town and minister for you? Do you need time off? If you need time off, how much time do you need off? It's all the questions I'm sure know to ask, but that we've never really told or taught our leaders or just regular folk, hey, this is the list.
Wow. So, I honestly, if what you're saying, it just makes so much sense, but it's so unfortunate that it's something that a lot of ministries do not have in place. And so I'm telling you guys, you who are listening, thank you so much for your comments. Think about these things. And even if your leader doesn't get an opportunity to watch this live, send it to them, or even you say, hey, do we have a grief contingency plan and what that would look like, and offer suggestions, as to, hey, here's the book and things of that nature, because at the end of the day, support. And your leader's not going to read everything and know everything, whatever. There's things that you need to bring already done. That's the part. Bring it already done and say, here, take a look and tell me what you think and give me your approval. Do I need to go back and fix this? Because that's another thing too. A lot of times we're waiting for our leaders to come to us with something instead of saying, you know what, I came across this person, and I think as a ministry, I want you to take a look at it, tell me what you think, and is this something that we look into doing? I just say that because a lot of times, especially if your leader is dealing with a lot of grief and loss, especially throughout this last year, they're probably not in the headspace to even think of a contingency plan or think of what needs to happen. Exactly, evangelists, be proactive. A lot of times we wait until we're in the midst of crisis to try to come up with solutions. And a lot of times we are not mentally there. I know I'm not. When and I can tell people all the time, and I told you guys on this program, when COVID hit, thank God for the Holy Ghost. Because when the Holy Ghost, like seriously, in February, it was right after my birthday, February last year, I had a dream, and the Lord told me to, when you go to work tomorrow, prepare to take your people out of the workplace. And I said, oh, okay then. So when I got to work the next morning at 8 o'clock, I sent the email to the CEO and was like, we need to start preparing the transition because we're going to get kicked out the office. That's pretty much what I said to them. And it was, oh, okay, no problem. And literally, by the time we got kicked out, March 16th, we had a whole month. Most of the people were already out of the office by the time we got to March 16th, because I had to make sure everyone had wireless internet, everyone had tools that they needed, everyone had laptops if they needed, printers and all of these things. And so I want to kind of transition to, because you guys know I got 20 minutes, but I was not going to let Apostle Dwann Holmes be on this platform and not talk about marketplace and profit. I was not. And that is because in March of last year, I sat on the phone with one friend and I cried to her. I cried because I said, you know, at that time, I'm an elder in the Lord's church and I go to an awesome ministry, but I was like, there's more. I just see so much more and I want to do so much more. And I see this. And, you know, I had embedded in my head years of previous ministries telling me, you spend too much time at work. Why you give them 150%? You need to be giving God more. So, of course, all of these things were in my head because they've been in my head since I was in my 20s, you know, how hard I worked. And I really felt like this is my life's mission. I didn't have a name for it. I couldn't identify it. And I cried and I cried and cried on the phone. And then all of a sudden, like I said, I've been following Apostle Dwann's ministry for years. But then all of a sudden, the book comes. The global call to marketplace ministry. And I said, okay, I'm going to read the book. And then Apostle Dwann, see, this is what I heard, you guys. And like I said, I've never met her in person or anything like that. But when I read the book, she then led me to another book, Anointed for Business, and said, read this book too. And so I started reading and reading and reading. And as I was reading, my eyes began to open and literally the scales fell off. And I was like, oh my God, this really is a thing. Like, this really is a thing. And guess what, guys? She was talking about things before COVID hit, because all of a sudden COVID hit, and everybody want to talk about their call to the marketplace. I just want to say that. But she had been talking about this for years. And so please talk about, where did this come from? Because you've been talking about it, like I said, the years before COVID. I mean, the book took a while, but I remember watching things and the Monday prayers and all of those things. So I know it came from God, but how did this come about?
Well, you know, I think, as you know, I was a TV news reporter anchor. I was in Nashville, Tennessee. And at that time, I knew that there was more for me to do outside of TV news that would impact the kingdom, but still in media. So I began to look up at, you know, crazy broadcasts that church folk were doing, and they were horrible. And I knew I could help. and then the defining moment for me was when we were in this newsroom on a weekend, and some of the other people I worked with were laughing at the broadcast. I was like, this isn't good. This isn't good. I can help. They were laughing. It was awful. And so, you know, then all of a sudden, my then news photographer and I, you know, we were on break and he drew a logo. I said, hey, this is the name. He drew a logo. It came forth. And then I just remember God really making it plain to me that ministry would take place in my building. Ministry would take place. I also knew, as a TV news reporter anchor, I would always get the hard stories, you know, the stories where people couldn't get people to talk, but they would talk to me. But that was because there was an anointing. And so the people would always say, we know you love God. You know, we can tell there's anointing in your voice and what have you. But I think that was all about a process, because God wanted me to pay attention to understand that if my voice could impact someone in the midst of their crisis and still cause them to talk to me on TV news, and then it was going to go out to millions, surely he could cause me to impact millions in my business outside the church. And so,
wow.
I just knew that was supposed to happen. And next thing you know, I think I met Apostle Kim Daniels, and she started saying, "You guys have a deliverance production company." I said, "What? I don't even know what you're talking about." But again, it still made me go, "Okay, this name's a little strange," but that's what she says. And do you know, we had people signing up for deliverance. They would come in, and I had a separate room. They would sign up for deliverance. We had Bible study. And at that time, I was a member of Mount Zion Baptist, where Bishop Joseph Warren Walker III was pastor. But he has a mega church, and I was there doing media as well. I was doing huge media, so there wasn't a conflict. There wasn't a conflict where we see sometimes today, where we see pastors and bishops who are so concerned about this, forgive me, little bitty church and what you're doing, that they're afraid you're about to take members, when no, what you're really doing is evangelism outside the walls of the church, because that is what we're told to do in the Great Commission. You know what I mean? It didn't say go ye into some, it said go ye into all. And if we say all, we got to know that means a totality of who we are and where we are. And so that means that people need to be equipped to go out where they are, not in the church. And so that all started happening. And I just saw God transform things. And I really do see that I'm a pioneer, because if you go back and look up my name and Charisma magazine, I hired a prophet to just pray, and I gave him and his wife housing. You know what I mean? Like, I paid for an apartment and housing, and I think I gave him like $2,000 a month. And what I needed him to do, I need you to just pray for my business and pray for everything and fast, because I don't have time to do all that. But let me know what's going on, and we'll talk about it. And I remember at that time, some people were like, that's ridiculous. Why would you do that? But why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I sow into people who are praying for my business? The other thing that I noticed, though, I'm going somewhere now. Every time he would come to Nashville, he needed money. Every time. Hey, can I get 500 here? Can I get what? And then I'm like, where are you going now? And then I'm like, you know what? Let's think about, how about you just move here? Let's see if we can shift you here. And how about you just pray for me all the time? Just pray for my ministry and pray for what God is doing. That's unorthodox. And then I had people calling me everything but a child of God. And now I see huge churches saying, we've got full-time intercessors now. But then when I'm paying a prophet to just pray and prophesy, I'm looking crazy. But there are double standards in ministry as it relates to women. But the women and prophets, apostolic, all that. But the bottom line is, there's a huge possibility that God has called you outside of the church. There's a huge possibility that what you are called to do is not in the pulpit. And this is that season where we talk about in the book, and we talk about an anointing for business, where I believe God wants us to lay hands on marketplace leaders and affirm them where they are planted outside outside the church. But now guess what? Now they're in their homes in digital spaces. And can we bless that now? So I do. Now God's been speaking to me now. Just so you know, I am going to do a marketplace ministry, either virtual retreat, or as soon as we finish as we move into 2022, I'm going to do one based off of this book and really put something together for marketplace leaders, so we can really talk through this and be equipped. So I'm really excited about that. I forgot he had just kind of, yeah. So anyway, but it's all going to be based on this.
I know that's how he deals with. So Apostle, I am telling you, and people are know, I'm telling you, you guys don't have that book. I meant to pull that one up too, The Global Call to Marketplace, because there was one thing, first of all, mostly all of the stuff you guys see me do, thank you, Apostle, I got from that book because it is practical. It's in English. It ain't in, tongue jaw, because sometimes I've read books and literally is like, huh, what are you talking about? And it's so very plain. And I just want to say one of the things, and she mentioned it when she talked about that she hired a prophet and brought him to Nashville to just pray for her business. I just want to tell you guys, in June of last year, after I read the book, and I mean, y'all, I got notes and everything. You see how I use StreamYard and all that other stuff? Because I sat in the media class and found out about the platforms to use in order to be able to come to you guys. Because again, when the Lord started speaking to me about me coming back on social media, I was like, well, God, I'm about to be a doctor. So if I'm doing this, it got to look a certain way. It got to be a certain way. It got to be in excellence. And one of the things that the book talked about, what she mentioned is, I said, okay, I need people to start praying for my business. So I said, Lord, you got to give me people that you want to help pray for my business. And he led me to 4 women. And when I went to each one of them, again, I knew them all, but I didn't know them all. Meaning, one person, she's a pastor, and I said, well, I don't know her, but I know her from social media. So I'm negotiating with God. Like, ain't she busy? Like, what I look like asking her to pray for my business? And he said, no, go to these 4 women. I said, okay. We started June of last year. We have now increased to over 20 women. And let me tell y'all, I thought we was coming to pray for my business, because I really, really did, because that was the vision. That was my vision. We're up here praying against the enemy. I mean, people are in different states, in Indiana, Chicago, Jersey, all of these places. And these are women who are in the marketplace, entrepreneurs, business owners, who are giving the devil hell. I'm telling y'all, schools where our children are. And every Tuesday, because we meet on Tuesday nights and stuff, I sit in amazement because of me reading your book and saying, okay, I'm going to get people to pray. And then the Lord all of a sudden shifted and said, oh, not only are y'all going to pray for your business, you guys are going to pray for everybody's stuff. And guess what? Now you're the ecclesia. So now y'all going to pray for all of these things. And you're going to pray against police brutality. You're going to pray against, women being treated equal. You're going to pray against our Black men and boys and stuff get killed out in the streets. And none of us have all been together in the same room at all. We're on Zoom. Right. And the power of God falls every single week, to the point where now we're in a secret group praying every single day on the prayer wheel. And I just want to say, honestly, I really did get that from your book. I mean, the Lord gave the download, but as I read, it was like, oh my God, this is what we're supposed to be doing? Like, it's okay to pray for money. It's okay to pray for your business. Because my thing is, and I told them when I attended a board party on this weekend, I plan on being a billionaire. And not for myself, because I need to buy a city so I can house Black and brown women, so I can help them own some things. Like, these are the things that God wants us to do. And so I'm just, first of all, I'm excited about you, Apostle, because like I said, you are truly a pioneer in what you are doing and what you're bringing to us. That it's honestly, like I tell you guys, this was before COVID. I don't care what nobody say. She got receipts. Go all the way back to the Monday midday marketplace prayer.
It was a long time ago.
It's been a long time. But I wanted you, because we have about 7 minutes. You're offering so so many things to educate and empower us. And so I wanted you to kind of go over some of those things because you have an institute, you're doing coaching, you're doing a lot, Apostle. I don't know how you do it all, but
I know it's the grace of God. But here's what I'm doing. You know, I told my folk, my people, my prophets, and those I cover, the pastors, I said, y'all, I just got done with an intense business retreat with my new business coach. And I said, oh my gosh, if y'all think I'm intense, you get with her. But the point of it was, you know, she really is causing me to focus now on some of the other things as well, because I can do so many things, and most of them I do well. But first and foremost, I just, you know, let me say, I appreciate being on here, and I appreciate you really recognizing and seeing, you know, what God has done in my life, because it's good to understand and to recognize when people really are trailblazing before the pandemic. But the other thing is, you know, for prophetic training, you can go to globalpropheticinstitute.com. Again, globalpropheticinstitute.com. And you know what? For years, this is my sidebar. I do sidebars. I'm looking at the time too. I do sidebars. You know, for years, I hesitated on telling people they could join my church virtually because, you know, I knew it was going to seem strange. I mean, for years, I had this idea 20 years ago because I was the one, when I was the director of marketing at the University of Nebraska, Kearney, my alma mater, I went back there to launch their first marketing department in 2007. I was the first. All right. So in Nebraska, where there are Black people and where I grew up, but it was in the middle of nowhere. They're in the middle of nowhere. And I'm saying, oh my goodness, there's no real prophetic churches around me. So that gave me an understanding that, oh my goodness, we need virtual spaces for people to have church. And if I can give it to you via globalpropheticlife.com, and you're in the middle of Michigan, or you're in the middle of, you know, some faraway place in New York, why should anybody else be mad? You know what I mean? Mind your own business and let me do what God is telling me to do. So that's that. But anyway, but so Global Prophetic Institute has grown leaps and bounds. We have affirmation tracks for prophets, whether they're in the marketplace or they're in the church. And we have like 75 to 100 modules of just learning for this. And I think we got about 20 or 30 who are, you know, transitioning now. We're getting ready to do prophetic convocation. And then last but not least, as you mentioned, I'm on my last round, I think, my last round of laser coaching. I just only opened it up again this year because I really felt like marketplace prophets and marketplace folks really needed and need extra help in this season. I kept getting inboxes about, can you help me with this? And can you help me with this? I'm like, you know what? Let me just do laser coaching. And essentially what laser coaching is for me is you get 15 minutes of my time. Right now it's for the year, but it's about to dwindle down to about 90 days. But anyway, you get 15 minutes of my time and I coach you through whatever you're going through. I help you through that situation, whether it's prophetic or whether it's a business situation, but really I'm giving you the blueprint. And you go do your homework and then you come back and it's unlimited. You can't beat that. And so, because I have a lot of people saying, ooh, do you do one-on-ones? Well, no, I do one-on-one VIPs, but I'm not about to sit there on the phone with you. So this is the best way that I could put it together. For that. And so anyway, so that's what that is. And you can go to monetizetribe.com, monetizetribe.com. I believe that's what that is. And last but not least, like I said, I'm really getting ready to focus again on my media and helping boss ladies and founders of faith brand on demand and really up level their $1 million brands, those who know they're supposed to have $1 million brands. I'm ready to help all of y'all out. So I'll be releasing more information on that as well as we get ready to kick off. Did I say it? Was that it?
I told y'all she is dynamic. I keep telling y'all she like my mentor in my head because I'm telling you everything. Like people be like, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I'm like, yeah, because I feel like I'm supposed to do this. I feel like I'm supposed to do that. And the fact that I am seeing women of faith step up in this hour, especially our Black and brown women, we are leaders as it is. Stand up and step up and be trailblazers and what God has called and assigned us to do. I am just honored. I'm telling y'all, like, I'm not fanned out because, like I said, we've done a couple of platforms together. We just never been on video together. But I truly am honored, Apostle, that you would even consent to be, because again, I know you're an apostle. I know the Lord speaks to you. And if you're anything like my apostle, you don't just get on a platform with anybody. So I am honored that the Lord allowed you to be on a platform with me. I truly do not take it for granted. It is really, truly an honor. And I honor the anointing on your life that the Lord has placed on your life, because like I said, it has truly been a blessing to me. Truly,
Thank
truly
you.
been a blessing to me. And so I pray this isn't the last time, guys.
It won't be. You know what? It won't be. I need you to download this and give it to me so I can play it on my page as well. I want to re-air it as a premiere. I think we talked about some valuable information.
Oh, thanks, Apostle C. And you guys, I learned from Apostle Dwann that I needed to own my content. And that's why I can download and repurpose my content. I told you guys, and I didn't learn that from the book. I learned that from taking the masterclass on media. See, like I said, y'all need to follow her.
Oh my goodness.
Through different platforms. I've learned the importance of having my own people's information. I'm telling you, she is a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. So again, I thank you so much, Apostle, for saying this wouldn't be the last time. I'm so excited. But again, you guys, please, please, please get the book. Get the book. Even if you're not grieving, you know someone who is. Get the book to someone. And so that you can show them, one, that you are paying attention. Get it for your leader. Get it for your leader. If you know that your leader has lost someone, whatever, I'm going to get the audio for my leader because my leader has experienced a lot during the last year. And he's an avid reader, but I want to get him the audio so he can listen to it. Because again, guys, don't just take this information and take it for yourself. I'm a each one, reach one type of person. So again, you can get it from Amazon. You can get it from prophetdwann.com. You can, I'm telling you, search her name. It's going to come up. Her SEO is good. It comes up in the top of the Google. So you can make sure that you get that. So thank you so much, Apostle. And I have to say thank you so much, Prophetess Henry, Pastor Henry, because you've been on it tonight. I have to go back and listen. I heard that you ministered on yesterday, I believe. So I'm going to go back and listen.
It was good. It was good. She can preach. Oh my goodness. It was good.
Again, Apostle Dwann, that's Dwann Holmes, is everywhere on all social media. She's all things media, ministry, as she stated. Please, thank you so much. See, Pastor Henry be on it. I love her. Let me put it up.
God bless you guys. Let me remind people, go to if you need prayer prophecy, go to getprophecynow.com. Prayer prophecy, you can go to Get Prophecy Now or Apostle Dwann, but I'm just saying because we serve lots of people across the world who need prayer. Yeah. That's a sidebar. God bless
prayer
you.
And prophecy. And let me tell you guys now before you would call it, the prayer and prophecy are free. If you would like the recording of your prophecy, there's a cost for that because materials are not free. So you're not paying for prophecy. If you would like the recording, you are paying. See, I told y'all guys, I listened to her because I know all this stuff.
Oh my goodness.
GetProphecyNow.com. Again, the prayer and the prophecy, there's no charge for that. Nobody has no cash app up or none of that. I know that's what y'all used to. That's not what the apostle does. However, if you would like a recording of what was shared with you, then you would have to pay a fee to get those materials. So I just wanted to make sure you know that. Okay. I love you all so much, and I'm praying for you. I am truly praying for you. And I just want to say again, share this, and get the book out to someone. Also, too, if you believe that you're called to the marketplace, get that Global Call to Marketplace Ministry book. Again, you can get it in the same place. That one is in Audible, and you're going to want it because she is reading the book herself. So again, thank you all so much. Again, thank you so much, Apostle. I really love you, and has been a pleasure. And God bless you all, and good night.
Good night.